It definitely was a taxidermy part of his life that gave him that close-up of every bird that he probably drew, or most of the birds that he drew.
The time he spent studying study skins gave him the ability to recreate his artwork to look natural. And
through years and years and years, then you might see something, and because of your experience being a taxidermist as well, you can probably draw a little bit better than you would have 10 or 20 years earlier.
Did you know Allan Brooks was also an accomplished taxidermist? That's true. His knowledge of bird anatomy wasn't just crucial to his art, it was essential to the scientific community. Today we're heading into the Canadian Wildlife Museum to meet the owner, Ken, a very accomplished taxidermist himself, who will show us how Brooks combined art, science, and craftsmanship in his work.
So Ken, thank you for allowing us to come down here. You started this Canadian Wildlife Museum a couple of years ago, open to the public?
we opened to the public in 2021.
Okay. But it took you a decade or so to basically create.
Almost 3 decades.
Almost 3 decades.
28 years.
28 years, you put your heart and soul into this project before you opened up to the public. When did you get into taxidermy and how?
I started taxidermy at age 15 back in 1971. So I've been doing it for 53 years.
And what got you into it? What did you see, or was there someone in your family? Or?
Oh, had interest in wildlife, loved the outdoors, had a real passion for birds of prey and birds in general. And found, and I was always into artistic things, so it was
the next step.
A great way to express my artistic talents.
So birds were the first things that you really got into?
Oh yeah.
Which is what Allan Brooks was really into as well, was the birds, yeah.
Yeah, when I was 15, I started taxidermy. By the time I was 19, I had about 75 birds mounted in my bedroom.
When you were living with your parents?
Yeah.
What did they say? You're running out of space? We need to get you a shed or something? What is the actual process of, like, say, let's start with birds. What is the process when you're taxiderming a bird?
Well, we call it mounting.
Okay.
You have to skin the bird. The only thing off the bird you use is the skin. You don't use any of the insides. You make an artificial body, and you run wires through the legs and the wings, and they're anchored into the artificial body, and that allows you to position your arms, your wings and your legs into the pose that you want, and yeah.
And what's the filling that you put in there to fill them up?
You can either use a foam body that you carve out of styrofoam, high density styrofoam, or you use something that's called Excelsior. It's not a product that's available anymore, but it used to be what they used to use as packing materials, what we use styrofoam chips for today.
Okay.
So it's like a shredded wool, shredded wood, and it's wrapped with string to be into the shape of the original body, and that's what Allan Brooks would have used is
back in the day.
Felser, and that's what I still make my bodies out of today.
So it's still a product you can find?
Now I have
or you still have some
two big bales that would mount
oh, wow.
1,000 birds, so I still have lots.
Is there a difference back then to now of how to mount a bird? Would it have been longer then than it does now, or the same tools, same every?
Birds have not changed. It'll be identical process. Okay. Big game animals, they have changed greatly, but birds still use the same process.
Tools, everything would have been the same back then, or does?
You don't need many tools, but
okay.
Just a handful. But back in the early years, like prior to 1920s, they did use arsenic in preserving animals, which hasn't been used since the 1940s. It's too dangerous.
Yes, of course. And with yourself here now, how long would a process take of like just a regular bird? Nothing too big or anything. How long would the whole process take?
Something like a great horned owl would take about 12 hours of time to mount. Some of the birds, like an eagle, could take 25 hours, 30 hours.
Are you the kind of guy, if it takes 8 to 10 hours, would you go straight through from beginning to end, or you put her to sleep for a little bit and then start the next day?
I used to always go straight through and complete a bird from start to finish, because when they start to dry out, then they're hard to work with. But in recent years, as I got older, I skin them one day and wash them, and then the following day I will dry them and mount them.
And if you don't mind me asking, where do you find most of your animals?
All the hawks, owls, and eagles are protected, so they are all roadkills that I actually had to purchase from the BC government.
Oh.
It's the only way to get them. If you find a roadkill, you have to get a permit for it, and you have to buy that bird from the government. Mm-hmm. They also used to have government auctions, and I got a lot of the birds from government auctions. Since 2010, everything goes in the garbage can. They don't have auctions anymore, which is kind of a shame.
Well, back with when Allan Brooks was around, there weren't any auctions or anything like that. Would he have just shot the birds himself? Or?
He would have shot them himself until about 1955, or I'm not sure the exact date, but in the mid-1950s, birds of prey were considered a pest, and you could shoot as many as you wanted. You could shoot 10 eagles a day if you wanted.
Back then it was a lot easier than it is now. There's more red tape.
Well, there was no red tape.
There was no red tape.
In those days, they were just considered a pest, and if he wanted birds for his collection, he could just harvest them.
And when you mount them, you can mount them on, what would you mount them on? Like on a bird? Would you find like a perch, or you can put them on a plaque, I've seen, or what?
Oh, well, if you look around the museum, you'll see they're all on
your wall here.
On driftwood.
On driftwood, yeah.
I go to the big lakes and bring back, truckloads of unique driftwood.
Things that have already fallen off the tree and everything?
Well, ones that have been in the water for years.
Yeah.
They get washed and...
Totally. And they give you that look too.
Quite
that
attractive, yeah.
Is birds still your favorite animal, you were saying? Or what is your favorite thing to tax?
No, I loved big game animals. I did birds until probably the mid-'80s, and then I lost interest in birds. Did mostly big game animals until probably about 5 years before I opened the museum. I had over 200 birds in my freezer that I had to mount for the museum. Some of it had been in the freezer for 40 years.
Wow.
So there's a little trick to rehydrating them so you can mount them, but yeah, I've mounted lots of birds that were frozen for 40 years.
And you brought them back to life.
They come right back to life if you do it right.
This little guy behind me, how long would it have taken to mount him?
The polar bear itself was probably around 120 hours, something like that. There was some form alterations involved, and the base can be more work than the animal.
And how did you end up acquiring him?
I purchased it from Inuit hunters.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. They actually harvest 600 polar bears a year in Canada.
So he was obviously all skinned and everything ready to go for you.
Yes, I just bought a skin. Yeah.
How do you ensure the preservation and accuracy of the specimens you work with?
Well, mammals are a little different than birds. The skin has to be tanned, so it's a tanning process just as the same as what you would make leather shoes out of. You have to tan your leather. The fur is left on, and we use a polyurethane artificial form that is poured in a mold. We use plastic teeth, plastic tongues.
There's a lot of toys are made. If you think about it.
Glass eyes.
Oh my gosh.
And then the skin is, after it's tanned, it's glued and sewed in place onto the form. Eyes and teeth and details are all modeled in clay. The form has to be posed and altered to the right size to fit the hide.
And how do you get all this done? I mean, the accuracy on this is amazing. Is it just by photo?
From experience, mostly.
Initially, though, when you first started, was it by photo? Because I'm sure you got the experience now.
I used tons of reference photos, but basically it's just from experience. Get to know animals' anatomy and how things are supposed to look.
Are you an artist as well, by any chance?
Not greatly.
Because I was going to say, with this kind of great detail, you could probably draw it really well as well.
I'm not a good drawer. I'm more of a craftsman than an artist. I dabble in artistry, but I'm not a great artist.
This is another form of art. This is amazing.
Taxidermy is sort of a marriage of art and craftsmanship.
And where would you find teeth and eyes and such?
You buy them from taxidermy supply companies.
Oh, there are? Okay.
Major ones. There's 27,000 taxidermists in the United States and over 2,000 in Canada.
And how many different shops or locations that you would be able to purchase this in this country?
There used to be dozens, but there's a few major taxidermy supply companies that have bought out all the smaller ones, so they kind of have a monopoly on it now.
So when you would add the skin, I'm assuming you're stitching everything together. What kind of stitching do you use? What kind of string?
You use nylon thread.
Nylon thread, okay. It's almost like being a doctor at the same time too.
Much finer stitching than a doctor uses, and most small animals are fine holes that you have to sew up on faces or whatever.
Yeah.
Very fine stitching.
And would you say this is one of those smaller mounts you would have, or?
Well, you can mount anything down to the size of a mouse, but
Yes.
I never enjoyed doing anything smaller than a fox. The small animals are difficult.
Intricate.
Thin-skinned.
Probably have to get one of those hats that you pull down, like what do you call it, like a jeweler has, that's got the big magnifying glass so you can see better. This is incredible. And I see how you're saying about the poses and everything too. You want to get as real as they would have been posing, I guess, when they were alive.
Pose that you want has to be totally done. Form has to be altered before you put the skin on.
Of course.
Some of the animals in the museum, like over there, we have a cougar pouncing on a mountain goat, and there's probably 80 hours in labor just to alter those two forms without starting on mounting the animals. Very unique poses. All the alterations have to be done before you even start on mounting the animal.
Yeah, I know that Allan Brooks collected probably thousands of birds that he worked with. Do you think he probably gave some as gifts or sold them as well? Or, I mean, everything that you do here now goes into your building here, but prior to this, were you just for the last 3 decades planning for this location, this dream you had, or did you ever sell any?
Well, yes, I sold thousands of animals. I was a taxidermist for 53 years, and buying and selling wildlife was a big part of my business, as well as doing custom work.
And you have to pay the bills too, I guess.
Yes, yeah, I still had to make a living.
Yeah.
I think Allan Brooks did a lot of mounting specimens for scientific study. So a lot of his were not mounted birds for display purposes. They were a lot of study specimens. A lot of taxidermists created those specimens for museums and other collectors. And
for the science part, are they any different compared to the showcase
yes,
pieces?
You don't use an artificial body. You don't put any wires in the legs or wings.
Okay.
They basically skin them, preserve them with borax, and stuff them with cotton. Sew up incision on the chest, and there's no mounting. They don't actually put any glass eyes in them or anything.
So you can get a lot more done that way as well. But yeah, the scientific side would have been massive back then. They need to learn as much as they can. What is some of your most challenging aspects of what you do as a taxidermist?
Life-size animals, mammals, the larger ones, can be a real challenge. Often the hide has to be fitted to the form 4 or 5 times to get the form to the right size. So form alterations can be quite intricate, time-consuming.
So with the school groups, what do you hear a lot of the kids or even the teachers saying that they've never known before? Is there one particular thing usually that they say, oh, I never knew that?
Oh, the younger...
They might think they all have bones inside them and you just glue them together.
Yeah, the younger kids, they're quite, they're more interested when they go through the museum, they're more interested in learning about taxidermy and how the animals are mounted than they are about learning about the animals. They're quite intrigued about taxidermy in general. So it's quite educational for them to learn that the animals are not just stuffed with some crunched up toilet paper. And that might sound funny, but the general public in general don't have any concept of how taxidermy is done.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Things like our wildlife museum educate the public greatly. I mean, when do people get the chance to get up close and personal, like 5 or 10 feet away from polar bears and grizzly bears?
In a safe manner.
All the different birds of prey. Most people go out bird watching and they'll see birds of prey at 50 yards or
more, yeah,
or further, and to see them 2 feet away or 5 feet away, you see all the details, and so there's lots to be learned seeing mounted taxidermy specimens.
And to see them that up close, sometimes there might be that, illusion where anytime there's a wild animal, you should be scared of it, or when you see them close up like that, you realize that, they all have a part in this world like we all do. And sometimes you leave them alone, they'll leave you alone. You have a little bit more respect for them as well.
Well, hopefully people would have more respect from them, but I see so many videos out there of people that walk up to grizzly bears and think they're a pet and try to feed them or walk
or take
right up
photos.
And take photos. They got to have screws loose. They are dangerous animals that get used to human beings, but they can turn on you in a second, and you got to have respect for that wildlife.
Exactly, and especially when they're in their natural habitat.
Of course. Yeah.
Do you think through the process of taxidermy, gain better understanding or even just spending that much time with a bird when it came to his drawing?
Oh, of course. I mean, I'm sure he learned all kinds of details working with specimens that would help him with his art.
Because that's what I noticed with your plastic piece as well that you had showed me, that just the details of, it wasn't even skinned, your little animal there, just the details of its whole entire body. It's because you spend enough, you spend enough time with them, you kind of get to know what everything looks like close up more than most people. Have you ever collaborated with artists or illustrators in the past or other taxidermists to create a project?
Oh, I've got lots of ideas from looking at other taxidermists' pieces that they have done through taxidermy magazines and whatnot. Looking at other people's artwork has given me ideas of what I would like to create.
I was just going to say, because artists always get inspired by artists, whether they're musicians or painters, whatever it might be, you're going to get inspired by something else you see.
Sure.
So that actually is really cool. Have you ever collaborated with anybody on a project?
Sometimes. I mean, there's other people that ask my advice. I'm glad to give it. So you asked about how taxidermy affects conservation of wildlife. I think it affects it in a great way. Allow people to see wildlife and enjoy wildlife. Many people are against killing animals, but we make use of those animals that die of natural causes, or a hunter shoots an animal and uses it for meat, but rather than let the hide and horns go to waste, it's used where we can
For educational purposes.
Create some educational purpose, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a great tool that helps in conservation and
For science and education.
education, yeah.
What did you learn when you first started? What was some of the first things you kind of found from doing taxidermy that you never knew before? And not the art form, more of the creatures themselves. Like, was there something that you felt maybe or learned, whether it was claws or how unique each one was, or feathers, or the different types of birds that are out there? Was there anything that was similar or completely different? Can you tell which one was male or female right away? I mean, is there anything that when you were a young kid, when you first started, do you remember some of the first things you learned?
I was continuously learning different characteristics in appearance and anatomy of different birds.
Something that I wanted to ask in the beginning was, when you first get your animals, you were mentioning that they're frozen?
Birds,
Like they put them in a freezer first?
birds are.
Okay, and the feathers now, do they ever change color in between the time when they pass away until when you receive them to stuff them?
Birds do not change color unless they're exposed to sunlight and the weather, but
So nothing becomes too brittle or change colors or anything like that?
no.
So you can get them, I mean, they'll look exactly like they did then?
Yes, even the ones that were in the freezer for 40 years, when they were mounted, they looked exactly the same as when they first died.
And I think you have one here to show me that you just received.
Yeah, I have a barred owl that I was going to mount tomorrow.
Well, let's get over there and take a look.
Yeah.
So, this is how it begins right here?
This is how it begins. This is a frozen barred owl that was road killed. And
From where, do you know?
I think it was killed in central BC here somewhere. It's the customer that brought it in is from 100 Mile House.
So there's nothing inside this right now. It's just all exterior.
Inside here right now
Yes.
is all its flesh. It's not skinned yet.
Oh, it's not skinned yet, sorry.
No, it's just the way it got
How it,
found on the side of the road. Yeah.
Yeah. So how long does that process take just to get rid of all the innards?
It takes half a day to skin it and prep it for mounting, and then the following day. So tomorrow I'll skin it. The following day I will mount it.
And what do you do with everything that you pull out from the inside?
Oh, it
Just
goes in
garbage?
the garbage can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
nothing except the skin is used.
And then how long would this process take?
To mount a
Yes.
barred owl like this, about 12 hours.
Okay. And do you need to put anything in its eyes, or everything that you mount gets eyes? New fresh set of eyes, I'm assuming?
This will have glass eyes. I can show you a pair if you'd like to see.
You were mentioning actually that you have
Thousands of eyes.
thousands of eyes, so
Yeah.
you've already got them in stock. What else do you have besides eyes that you pre-purchase so you can have in stock?
Oh, eyes and teeth.
Eyes and teeth are the biggest things. Yeah, let's take a look at the eyes.
So these are all bird eyes. We have different sizes and different colors for every type of bird, right down to smallest sparrow.
And does it come from your experience, you knowing what type of eyes, color eyes that these birds would have, or do you ever look back again and, take a look at some old photos and such and see what they actually look like?
When you skin the bird, you can see the color of its eyes.
So the eye doesn't change either when they die after a while?
Usually not.
Okay.
And it also comes from experience. You know what species of bird has what color eyes. Like great horned owls will have a yellow eye like that. Snowy owl will have a lighter eye.
Wow.
Barred owls, like the one I'm going to mount, will have either a black eye or actually they have a blue pupil. Big game eyes are different again.
So would Allan Brooks have had the same kind of setup you have with the eyes as well?
I don't
Back
think
then?
he had that kind of selection, but
So they all kind of started to look alike, a lot of the birds, because you had what you had for fake eyes?
well, I think he could get different colors of eyes, but I don't think he would have stocked a huge selection of eyes.
Do you think that they cared about being as accurate as you do back then?
I don't think for study specimens they probably didn't try to be accurate. I'm not sure that most study specimens even had eyes installed. So when he mounted birds for display, I'm sure he tried to be as accurate as he could. You can't always get the colors that you want.
What is the largest bird that you've ever had to mount?
An eagle.
The eagle?
Yeah.
I think what he learned from being out there was seeing what they're like in their natural habitat, more than, you know, intimate pieces of what to draw and what they look like or colors and anything. That was happening when he had one right in front of him.
Sure.
Yeah, that really brings a lot out to focus here for me, what Allan Brooks was doing, because it definitely was a taxidermy part of his life that gave him that close-up of every bird that he probably drew, or most of the birds that he drew.
Oh, of course, yeah. The time he spent studying study skins gave him the ability to recreate his artwork to look natural and you know, with the right colors and
but then you're right,
patterns.
Through experience, through years and years and years, then you might see something, and because of your experience being a taxidermist as well, you can probably draw a little bit better than you would have 10 or 20 years earlier, because you got that more experience with being close and personal with a lot of these critters. Well, thank you so much for your time. This is a wonderful museum, and if people want more information, what is your website?
It's CanadianWildlifeMuseum.com.
Well, thank you again for your time, Ken.
Great.
Taxidermy was more than a skill for Allan Brooks. It was a way to preserve the natural world and share its wonders with others. From preserving birds to painting them, his legacy was built on capturing the beauty of life. In our next episode, we'll see how that legacy lives on at the one and only Allan Brooks Nature Center. You won't want to miss this one.